Eider webs.
I'm sure I look very period with a cell phone and a gimbal.
I mean, yeah, totally. I look like an amalgamation of July weather and October weather. Is it hot or is it cold out? I don't know. You got a little bit of both going on.
Well, in wool it's hot.
Yes. It's a beautiful day outside.
Hey, we got a galaxy.
Yeah?
Somebody sent us a galaxy. Thank you, Santa Paranormal.
It's so cool.
So we're headed right now to High Street.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
High Street. To the birthplace of Sallie Myers.
Birthplace of Sallie Myers, and she lived there for, do you know how long?
Ooh, lots of spider webs. Basically, until she got married.
Okay.
We should also plan to stop at the Jenny Wade house.
On Breckenridge or on
It doesn't matter.
which Jenny Wade house? There's 3.
I was thinking the death house, but we
Okay.
could also stop at the Breckenridge Street house and just talk about how they did actually grow up together and her opinions on Miss Wade.
Hey, Big Poppy. We're doing
Hey.
well. There's not usually this much traffic down the alleyway.
Everybody's avoiding the main streets.
Yeah.
It's so busy.
We're doing well, Big Poppy. Thank you. For those who are joining in, we're doing a live history walk today on the civilian experience in Gettysburg during the Battle of Gettysburg. We'll be talking specifically about Sallie Myers. And we're on our way to her birthplace, birth house. Hey, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. You teach 5th grade in Frederick County, Maryland. That's awesome. Tambi's on. Hey, Tambi.
Hey! Yep, we are almost there. Not too far.
We're gonna have to figure out how to cross Baltimore Street somehow without getting hit.
We'll head down to the library and cross there. here.
Run real fast. Yes.
Yeah.
Are there ghosts in Gettysburg?
So many ghosts. Oh my goodness. All the ghosts. So yep, we are walking down Baltimore Street. We're coming up here to the corner of Baltimore and High Street. We're going to turn down High Street and head down to the birthplace of Sallie Myers.
They're wanting to know if we enjoyed being part of the movie that they're filming.
Oh my gosh, so much. It was so much fun. Oh, here, take it. Yay.
It was a long day, but it was fun. It's a busy day out here in Gettysburg today.
Yeah, it is. I was going to say, is church just letting out?
Looks like there's something going on there. Maybe we should cross to the other side.
Maybe. I don't necessarily want to get in people's way.
Yeah. Yeah, the plan is to post this once we're done on YouTube so that anyone who missed it can go back and watch the whole thing. And this is our very first time attempting something like this, so we're not quite sure what we're doing or how we're going to do it, but I'm sure we'll learn from this and it'll be fine. We'll be better next time too.
Do we want to cross the street? Or just go ahead and get it in the background?
Well, if we do it here, we can get the whole thing in the background.
Hey. It is busy in town today.
It's very busy today.
Holy cow. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Anna. I have been interested in Civil War history since I was a child. I'm the great-great-great-granddaughter of Sallie Myers Stewart, who was a nurse here at the Battle of Gettysburg. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background, Sallie Myers lived in this house, 55 High Street, right over here, right behind me. Obviously did not look like that. During the Battle of Gettysburg and during her early childhood and into early adulthood until she got married and moved to northwestern Pennsylvania. It is a gorgeous day outside, so I'm really excited that you guys are here with us today. We will be walking and talking about the civilian experience, specifically Sallie Myers, but also some other civilians. So if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We will try to get to as many as we can, but probably what we will do is I'll stop, I'll talk about a specific thing, and then pause for questions. So as we're walking or as I'm talking, if you have a question and I don't get to it right away and then it gets kind of rolled up into the chat, I do apologize. But yeah, so welcome. And whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah, so maybe the best thing to do is if you do have a question is just wait. Don't post it right away, and then we'll give an opportunity for people to ask any questions that they might have as we stop. So we'll give everybody time to ask questions if they have any.
Yeah. Sallie Myers, also known as Sallie Myers, her nickname being Sallie, was born June 24th, 1842. She was a school teacher starting at the age of 17. She taught at 2 different schools here in Gettysburg and slowly worked her way up amongst the ranks of educators. She was a writer and a poet. She frequently wrote stories for the local newspaper. She wrote poems in very detailed diaries that she left over the years. Starting around the age of 12 is when we know she first started writing her diaries up through her later adulthood. Now, there was a period of time after the birth of her son Henry in 1868 in which her diary writing almost came to a complete stop, if not fully came to a stop. And more than likely, we suspect that's probably because she was busy, she was a new mom, she also was a widow. She actually got married, gave birth to her son, and then a month before her son was born, her husband actually passed away. So she had her hands full basically on her own. So she didn't really leave as many detailed diaries later on in life, but during her early adulthood leading up to the Battle of Gettysburg and definitely following, she left some pretty incredible diaries and records. She lived here on High Street, and it was during her experience here on High Street that the priest over here at St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church actually came to her and her family and asked her and her sister Susanna to come down to the church and help care for soldiers. So it looks like maybe the crowd's starting to thin out a little bit, so I thought maybe we could walk up there and talk about her experience working on High Street.
We do have a question.
Yes.
Did Sallie get nursing through formal schooling?
No, she was truly thrown into this. Oftentimes here at Gettysburg, the civilians who were called into service had no medical training at all outside of what they might have learned at home. Sallie herself actually was afraid of the sight of blood and would pass out and become sick. And yet here she was thrown into the mix. So she had no formal training. She had to learn on the job. Oh, and I do apologize. I'm slightly anachronistic today in my outfit because I realized as I was putting on my outfit, I popped a button and I can't find it. So I rolled up my sleeve. So I do apologize. It's not totally period accurate, but I'm hoping you guys will bear with me.
And even though you can't see me, I am actually also in Union uniform. So we're doing our best here.
Hop down the alleyway. Still get a view of the church.
Yep.
Maybe it'll be a little quieter. St. Francis Xavier Church, directly behind me, was the site of a field hospital on this side of town. As the Union lines broke on the 1st of July, which actually, now that I mention it, did we actually go through the battle and the dates? We did not. I hope everybody knows the anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg is July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863. But just in case, I figured I should probably mention that. But as the Union lines broke on the 1st of July, and the Union soldiers started pouring through town, Buildings such as this one were converted into field hospitals that housed the dead and the dying. And Sallie, being called into service by the local priest, brought her and her sister Susanna down here. And the first man she came across was Sergeant Alexander Stewart of the 149th Pennsylvania Bucktails. He was mortally wounded. He was shot in the chest and stomach. And as she approached him, she asked him, "What can I do for you?" And his exact words to her were, "Nothing. I'm going to die." And Sallie broke. She sat down on the steps of the church and just sobbed. She had no medical training, no experience. She was so far out of her realm. She was only 21 years old. She'd only ever lived in Gettysburg, this small town girl suddenly thrown into the mix of the fighting and into the mix of the battle. But she did her best. She rallied herself and went back into the church and started caring for the soldiers as best she could. Several of these soldiers, including Alexander Stewart, were brought down to her house for her to better care for them and her family to provide for them. And interestingly, Alexander Stewart actually died in her arms, but before he died, he had her write a letter home to his family up in northwestern Pennsylvania, specifically his wife, his dad, and his brother Henry. Sallie wrote to them, got in contact with the family, wrote to his wife, and eventually his father and his brother came down here to Gettysburg to collect Alex's body and to take it back home. And in this process, Sallie struck up a correspondence with his brother Henry and ended up becoming quite close. And over the next 2 years, fell in love and eventually got married. So out of all of this tragedy, it's kind of amazing because I'm standing here today because of Alexander Stewart meeting Sallie Myers and her reaching out to his family. So she ended up marrying his brother Henry. They had one son, also named Henry, and that's the line that I come from. So it's a little bit of romance and happiness out of all of this tragedy, but it was still a pivotal moment in her life to be able to care for this man and for the following soldiers. So with that, maybe, did somebody get married?
Sorry.
Oh no, this is awesome. Maybe we'll walk uptown and find a little quieter alley. There's something going on, and it's really cool, and everybody looks really nice all dressed up, so whatever's going on looks amazing.
If anybody has any questions, now would be a good time to ask while we walk from one spot to the next.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
What's your favorite memory or ghost story at Gettysburg?
Oh, I have so many. Probably the one where I was doing a ghost tour at the Jenny Wake birdhouse, and that young girl with really beautiful curls was standing in front of me, and one of her ringlets pulled down on its own, and I watched as it just sprang back up. She didn't touch her hair, nobody was touching her, but she and I clearly watched as a ringlet pulled down and sprang back up. And when I asked her about it, I was like, "Are you okay?" Because not everybody's comfortable being touched. She laughed, which surprised me. And she was like, "Oh yeah, back home my friends love to play with my hair, and I guess the dead do too." And I was like, that's a good attitude to have, all right. I would not be okay with that. My scariest one though, I was doing an investigation at Mr. G's ice cream shop, and it was late, really late, and something bit the back of my shoulder, and I had to have my team members look at it because it hurt so bad, and they saw the scar. So, okay. So even if you could still go into Mr. G's, back into the energy area, I would not set foot in that building ever again. Having said that, I love their roast beef. So I will happily stand outside and have their turtle sundae, but I will not go inside.
We do have several ghost stories posted on our TikTok, so if you're interested in hearing ghost stories, I would highly recommend you give us a follow, go check those out. We have a whole bunch of them posted at this point.
We could hop across Baltimore Street, maybe, well, it might not be too bad here. I want to talk about the Union Retreat through town.
Okay.
It just might be a little bit quieter over there. If you're in town and you see these plaques that say Civil War Building, July 1863, it means that that house was here during the battle. Now, some houses, I believe some houses that have the plaque, like only a couple, potentially were built right after. But in most cases, if you see that, that's accurate, that that building was here during the battle. I love this house. Baltimore Street is hopping today.
Yeah. We could go down Breckenridge and go to the
Jenny Wayne house?
yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe a little quieter.
What is your question? All right, we're headed down Breckenridge Street now.
Do you remember which side of the street it's on?
It's on this side.
Oh, it's so floofy.
Hey, buddy.
Why are you just seeing them walk by? Come here. Yeah, now. Come.
Do visitors ever come dressed up in historical, I guess, outfit?
Yes.
Clothes, in historical clothes.
Yes.
All the time.
If you ever decide to get dressed up in historic clothing, you would totally blend in. People around here do not think twice about seeing someone dressed up.
Yep. There is a plaque on,
It's been a while since we've walked down Breckenridge.
yeah. We are in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Oh, it's up here. Right before Patrick Alley. You're from the New Ulm Battery. Wondering if you've heard of it. I've not heard of that one.
I have not, no.
Yep.
So if you've heard of Jenny Wayne, Jenny Wade's name was actually Mary Virginia Wade, or better known as Ginny. But there was a misprint in the paper that listed her as Jenny, and so forever to history she's been known as Jenny Wade. A couple fun facts about Jenny Wade. She was born at a house, or in a house up on Baltimore Street, a little bit further on up, but she was currently living in this house when the battle took place on July 1st. Unfortunately, as the Union lines broke and the soldiers began retreating and the Confederates advanced through town, Jenny, her little brother Harry, and Isaac, the neighborhood disabled boy that she cared for during the day, was a little child that she cared for, ended up retreating down Baltimore Street further south of town in the hopes that they would escape more of the active fighting. So she ended up escaping to her sister's house, but it was actually at her sister's house where she met her fate, and she ended up passing away. The house in which she was living, this house right here, took 0 direct hits. This house stayed completely intact, and as far as I know, nothing ever happened to it. But the house that she went to for protection down Baltimore Street took over 150 direct hits, including the one that killed her. So unfortunately, had she actually stayed in this house, she probably would have made it out okay. Now, another fun fact, Jenny Wade and my great-great-great-grandma, Sallie Myers, actually grew up together. They were roughly the same age. My great-great-grandma, Sallie Myers, was 21 during the battle. Jenny herself was 20, and they were not close. Unfortunately, the Wade family had a reputation here in town, and Sallie Myers, in my opinion, was a little bit of a snob and had her opinions about Jenny, including the fact that they were at a party one night and somebody broke out a fiddle. There was dancing involved, and my great-great-great-grandma was very anti-dancing. It was against her religious beliefs. So when Jenny and her friends began to dance, it caused quite a scandal, and Sallie Myers left in a huff because she didn't want to be around such people. Now, to us today, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal at all. It's very innocent, but in the Victorian era, certain religious groups had their opinions on dancing, and Sallie Myers was very, very strong in that belief. So yes, asked about Jenny later in life, on paper, Sallie Myers actually said, and I quote, "I was not a fan of Miss Wade." It's a little sad, but a little Gettysburg drama for you.
Okay, anybody have any more questions before we start moving on?
It's quite warm out here.
I'm gonna start going to the Jenny Wade house.
Sure. We'll walk down that way.
If anybody has any questions while we're walking, we can try to answer them for you. Can we do a pan around? So this is Breckenridge Street. This is a residential street. There's not much to see here.
Also, keep in mind that this town in 1863 only had about 2,400 residents. We were incredibly tiny. Gettysburg today, I think, has roughly 10,000, and that's including the college. So we're still a very small town. But in 1863, we were considerably smaller. And a lot of times people come to Gettysburg and they're surprised because they're expecting something, I guess, bigger or fancier, but we're just a teeny tiny little hamlet. What made us special was we had 10 roads, 11 if you count the Carlisle Road, splitting into 2, but that's a debate for other people, that led out and in of this town in like spokes in a wheel kind of pattern. And these roads led to cities like Carlisle, Harrisburg, our state capital, Baltimore, DC, and so on. And so we were kind of in this prime location just above the Mason-Dixon line where we had access to major cities and our roads were in really good condition. So when the soldiers started advancing in this area, they just sort of naturally converged here. So there's nothing that made us too special. There wasn't anything that really stood out. Growing up here for many years, they always said that we had a secret shoe factory or that we had a secret cache of shoes, but that's been debunked many times over. Both my parents are Gettysburg historians, which is where I get a lot of my information from, and that has been disproven many, many times. It's really just that we had an interesting geography and access to some pretty major cities in our area that allowed for the 160,000 soldiers to descend on this little town. Ooh, when we get further up, I should talk about amputations.
Yes. All right. Are you going to the house where she got hit? Yes, we are headed in that direction now. We're going to go visit Jenny's sister's house where she was shot. Is there any movies that have been shot in town? Actually, there's a movie filming right now. They filmed some last week. They're going to be filming over the next several months a new Gettysburg movie. There's a Gettysburg Christmas movie that was shot here a few years ago that's being released on November 5th, I believe, or 11th, November 11th on Amazon Prime, Fandango. It's called A Gettysburg Christmas. That was filmed here in town. The classic 92, 93 Gettysburg movie was filmed here. So there's been several movies filmed here. Yeah, people lived in that, currently live in the Jenny Wade house, the one that we were just looking at. I had the same tour guide on a haunted bus tour. So someone on here must have had you on their tour on the bus.
Welcome back. That's awesome.
Sure.
The bullet that killed Jenny?
Sure.
Here's another fun fact. Jenny Wade was the only civilian killed during active fighting, but she was not the only civilian killed in the aftermath of the battle. We had quite a few civilian casualties. People love to yell at us when we're dressed up in costume. But my great-great-great-grandma, Sallie Myers, was actually holding on to a soldier in her house, and she shifted position to move over a little bit because he was becoming very heavy. And as she shifted over maybe 3-4 inches, a bullet came through the window by where she was sitting and passed right through where her shoulder would have been had she not moved. And she wrote about it in her diaries about how close she came to being shot by this bullet going through the window. And there were many, many instances of that happening because every single house that was here was right in the middle of the battlefield. So whether you were over here on this side of Baltimore Street or this side, you and your family were most likely hiding downstairs in your basement or hiding wherever you could find shelter as the soldiers poured through town and as the fighting took place. So we are incredibly lucky that we only had one civilian casualty during the active fighting. With the mass amount of bullets flying through this portion of town, it's pretty amazing that we did not have war casualties. And this was actually right about where we filmed the other day.
Yep.
They had a cool green screen up over here. Wow. Okay, that food smells so good.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, I know it's not Civil War related, but you guys really need to come to Gettysburg for the food. We have some of the greatest restaurants. The Farnsworth House has absolutely incredible food. Mason-Dixon Distillery is probably my favorite. They have a goat cheese creme brulee that is awesome. ABC Brewery is phenomenal. The Blue and Gray, the pub. So we've got some pretty awesome restaurants. And now that I'm smelling that barbecue or whatever it is, it smells so good.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting hungry.
What if we cross the street so we can get the whole thing in the background, and then we won't be bothering the people trying to eat? Oh, cool! Thanks.
That's awesome. Thanks. Good job. Yay! I really do love this town. I love this town so much. There's a little something for everybody here. So the building behind me across the street is the Farnsworth House. They actually did a ballistics analysis at one point a couple years ago on Jenny Wade's house, the house in which she was killed, in order to determine where the bullet that killed her came from. And the ballistics analysis showed that the most likely spot was from the attic of the Farnsworth house. And as we walk up Baltimore Street, it's a little hard to tell, but we're kind of down in this little trough, this little mini valley on Baltimore Street. So if you are coming out of the square, you've got Baltimore Hill Creamery up here. We start coming down past Ghosts of Gettysburg. We start coming past the Shriver House, and we kind of hit this low point in the street. And then as we continue on up, we start to hit the higher point on Baltimore Street down at the south end. So basically what happened was the Farnsworth house attic was in a direct line of sight up the hill. And again, it's a little hard to tell right now because we've got all the trees, we've got these more modern buildings, but it was really cool that they were able to determine that point from which the bullet came. But unfortunately, that meant that most likely she was killed by a Confederate sharpshooter. That Confederate sharpshooter was almost certainly firing at the house in which she was staying, but intending to kill some of the Union soldiers who were hiding back behind the building or who were further on up the hill. So there's no way they were intending to kill a civilian, but unfortunately she just happened to be in the way. But this is a really cool spot in town. I know there's lots of traffic right now. I know it's super busy, but this is probably one of my favorite places to come in town. We've got some really amazing restaurants. We've got Mr. G's Ice Cream Shop if you're looking for paranormal activity. This area, also known as Alumni Park and Twin Sycamores, goes by a couple different names. This is a hotbed of paranormal. So if you're ever looking for a ghost experience, this is probably one of my favorite places to come. Oftentimes when I'm out here, I smell cherry tobacco like crazy. It's just one of those things in this area. It's really pervasive. And yet, as you walk around, you'll notice we do not have any tobacco shops down on this section of town. There's nothing to be providing that smell, but it's just here. Yeah, love this area.
So someone wanted to know if the bullet came from let me get it right. Bullet came from inside the house, but not from the person who lived there, correct?
Correct. So as the Union lines, like as I said, as the Union lines broke and they started retreating through town, the Confederates started pouring down Baltimore Street and started setting up sharpshooters in houses that had available windows so that they could fire up toward East Cemetery Hill and fire on the Union as they were retreating. And so unfortunately, the Farnsworth house was a great place where you had lots of access. A lot of these buildings were not necessarily here, had this nice high point to be able to fire from directly up to East Cemetery Hill toward the Union soldiers. So, but I'm gonna let the truck go past. But unfortunately, there were still Union soldiers who were caught in some of these houses. Some were caught kind of stuck in between lines. They couldn't quite fully retreat. So So you had a lot of firing back and forth across the street from both Union and Confederate, but the majority of the line actually broke and ended up kind of going up this way.
And these soldiers were actually taking over these homes. Like they were
Yeah.
just coming in and taking over and using them however they needed to use them.
They were truly rolling in and forcing people down into hiding in their basements. They were turning their kitchen tables into operating tables. They were ransacking food storage if they needed to. And unfortunately, the civilians had to just cower and pray. They had reports of women and children, civilians, hiding downstairs in their basements as men were being operated on in the living room and kitchen above them, and having blood pour through the floorboards onto them down in the basement. So children themselves, no matter how young they were cowering with their moms and sometimes their grandparents as blood rained on them. And as cannon fires were firing over the hill, bullets were flying in through their windows. It was a hellscape unlike anything we can imagine today. To really kind of put it into perspective, every single person here saw things that no human should ever have to see.
They're wondering if wearing period clothing stirs up more paranormal activity.
I would say at night, yes. I feel like more intelligent haunts are drawn to things that pull them back to the memory of being alive. So whether that's the clothing, sometimes if you have a pipe with tobacco, that will draw people in. In my experience when I'm doing investigations, one of the things that I love to do is talk and to get an electronic voice phenomena and EVP recording, because oftentimes I feel like they're more willing to make themselves known. Oh yes, let's up the witness tree.
Somebody was just asking about what a witness tree is.
A witness tree is a tree that was here during the battle that saw the fighting and the aftermath. I think the bike's here first. No, it's further on. Such as this sycamore. This is a beautiful example of a witness tree. This tree is so old. Look at how big this thing is. And this tree actually has its own plaque. It says, President Lincoln passed by this tree on November 19th, 1863. Witness trees are also really incredible because oftentimes they have been riddled with bullets. In fact, there are documented cases where they went to cut down a witness tree and broke saws because of the number of bullets that had landed in those trees. And this tree, was part of what we call twin sycamores. One of the sycamore trees was cut down some years ago, but trees like this would have experienced all kinds of bullet fire. So if this tree ever does go at some point and they were to truly examine it, there might be hundreds of bullets inside this thing, which is amazing that it's made it this long. But yes, this is incredibly old.
Someone wants to know approximately how many witness trees, and I have no idea. But I would bet that there's probably a lot.
Probably a lot.
And there is a series of books about the witness trees in Gettysburg that you can use as a guide if you ever want to go searching for them. I can't think exactly of what the books are called. I think just Witness Trees of Gettysburg. But they do have an Instagram and a Facebook page, so you can follow them if you're interested in learning more about the witness trees here in Gettysburg.
I just started following them a while ago and I love their account.
Yeah.
I love it.
Anybody have any questions while we're walking to our next spot?
feel like I know so many people simply because I'm related to everyone. I walk around town and I'm like, yep, that's my 5th cousin. There's my 3rd cousin, twice removed.
Bert wants to know, when you said that you'd smelled cherry tobacco, did you mean from a spirit or from a current day person?
From a spirit.
From a spirit.
Because whenever I smell it, I'm in Alumni Park and there's no one else around. It's always one of those late afternoon, evening times where I'm just sitting by myself or I'm having ice cream with you, and then I smell it very, very overwhelmingly powerfully strong scented.
Kristen wants to know, was there a POW camp where the Inn of Gettysburg stands?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I've not heard of any POW camps here in Gettysburg.
I don't think I have.
I mean, they absolutely captured
Yeah.
soldiers from the other side and kept them. So
That's a great question. I would have to look that up.
I'm not positive on any locations of any POW camps here. I think they just kind of kept them moving with them as they moved through town. Big Poppy says no.
No POW camps?
Yeah.
You want to pop up real quick and look at
Sure.
It is kind of hard to tell it from up here because we have the Inn of 1863 and a couple other more modern houses. But we are sitting up near the top of the hill, and from the Farnsworth house down here, it's one of these red brick houses, the bullet came flying through here, through this door, and then through a second door and hit Jenny in the back. Unfortunately, her mom had partially closed the second door to give her daughter some protection from the bullet fire that was coming in and hitting all over this building, busting out the windows, coming through the door. You see multiple bullet holes up here, but unfortunately it just wasn't enough. But yes, this house took over 150 direct hits that we've been able to count. And this house is really cool because it's a museum now, and this has not been added to or fixed. So if you ever come here and see it in person, it is pretty incredible to see the damage. This is all original. And also to kind of give you an idea, we had multiple soldiers back here in the garden, hiding behind this building, using it for cover. What is now the Jenny Wade gift shop used to be part of the garden. This was also part of it. So unfortunately, we had people actually firing from this spot down into town as the Union lines broke. But that also meant that as they were firing, they were being fired upon. There's even, I believe it's this right here, a soldier inscribed his initials while he was up here waiting. So those are from 1863. One thing that we don't often talk about, but I feel like it's really important to acknowledge, is that we had a number of African American families here in town. We had, I believe we still had one descendant of a slave as late as the early 1900s. Pennsylvania was weird with our slavery laws because even though we were one of the first states to outlaw slavery, we sort of factored in multiple generations of removing slavery, so it wasn't like a one-stop shop, like done as soon as the laws were written. But most of the African American families that we had here, I believe, were free, and many of them fled in panic because for weeks leading up to the Battle of Gettysburg, word had been coming that the soldiers were coming this way. And so a lot of families ended up leaving. When the fighting didn't happen, then they would come back. We'd get word again that the fighting was going to come this way, that Lee was on the march. Families would panic and leave, and sometimes come back a second time, only to then be caught in the mix. Sallie Myers wrote in her diaries of several neighbors that she had who were African American, who either packed up and escaped, or, in her words, suddenly found themselves with a major limp, or they found themselves with a severe speech impediment, or some other thing that would, in effect, make them, I hate to say it, like useless. And it's really tragic to think about, and I think it's important that we acknowledge this because we don't often talk about the civilian African American experience here at Gettysburg. It's something that we just sort of always gloss over, but we did have African American families here, and many of them, if they could not leave, suddenly had to turn themselves into barely able to walk and function humans. Sallie wrote in one of her diaries about a gentleman that she was pretty close friends with, who suddenly started drooling. Simply as he walked through town, he would just start drooling in hopes that if somebody saw him, they wouldn't capture him. So it's something that's not super well documented, but I do think it's important. It's something that if you get a chance and you want to research it, there are some websites and information out there. Beyond the Battle has some information. We have a couple museums in town that have more info, but it's really important, I think, to at least remember that we were a border state. We were right above the Mason-Dixon. And even though Pennsylvania had outlawed slavery back in the late 1700s, you know, a lot of these things still kind of impacted us for a long time. And I think it's also important to acknowledge the trauma that these families would have experienced, not knowing if the Confederates were going to come up this way, and if they and themselves could be captured and then sold into slavery. That's absolutely horrible to think about. But so many families had to worry about that on the day-to-day, especially leading up to the battle.
Anybody have any questions while we walk over to the cemetery? Or are we just doing a live tour for fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you want to enter over here?
Sure.
Yeah, we just love Gettysburg's history. We love walking the battlefield. And we thought it'd be something fun and a little different to walk you guys around and maybe talk about some more civilian experience.
Someone asked who was Sallie Myers.
She was a school teacher on High Street in Gettysburg during the battle. She was no one really of note. She came from a poor family. She is a descendant of John Troxel. Actually, I think John Troxel was her great-great-grandfather. He was the first known builder here in Gettysburg to build a home. So she is descended from one of the original settlers and founders of this town. So, but other than that, No one really of note, just a woman who was thrown into the battle, who left really incredible detailed diaries, who also just happens to be my great-great-great-grandma. So my family has heard stories about grandmother Salome for years, and then when my mom was in college, she started working on a paper about Sallie Myers, and through that she started doing more research. She started making connections at the Historical Society, got to actually see some of Sallie's diaries up close, and my family actually came into possession through a private auction of one of her diaries. So we actually have one of her diaries that's not in the Historical Society, which is really cool. But yeah, it's just your average civilian, but she was really incredibly brave, and I think she really experienced some things that would have put most anyone to the test, and she rose above it. She ended up actually nursing out at Camp Letterman, which is on the eastern side of town. That's actually where our Giant is now built. But Camp Letterman was the official Army hospital that was built in the aftermath of the battle, and that remained open for several months following the battle itself. And Sallie was one of the few women in town who got a special pass from the commander of Camp Letterman to be able to travel back and forth to continue nursing the soldiers that she took care of early on. So through this, she gained valuable knowledge and experience. She ended up still staying a school teacher. She remained a school teacher for most of her later adulthood until she got married. Her husband was a preacher, but unfortunately he lived less than a year after they were married. And then she stayed a widow for the rest of her life. She actually was a widow for, I think, over 50 years until she passed in the early 1920s. But yeah, just another civilian story, but one that we don't often hear about, we don't often talk about. I feel like we talk so much about Jenny Wade, we talk about Tilly Pierce, we talk about Sarah Broadhead, but Sallie Myers was also pretty cool. And if you go to some of our museums, a couple different museums and the visitor center actually have Sallie Myers quotes, memorabilia, artifacts, and images.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not super well known. Not outside of Gettysburg.
She's TikTok famous now.
Yeah.
Did Tilly Pierce and Jenny Wade like each other?
That I don't know, because Tilly Pierce was a teenager. I think she was only 15 during the battle. So I'm not sure how much she and Jenny would have interacted.
Probably didn't interact much with Sallie either.
Tilly, probably not. I don't know that Sallie ever wrote about Tilly in her diaries. Sallie herself really struggled because she wanted to hold on to her Christian beliefs. She really struggled, though, with her notion that she was a good person because she found most sermons boring. And she wrote in her diaries that she struggled to live her life in the Victorian Christian idealized way. But having said that, seeing how Jenny behaved in doing things like dancing and having the family she had, it was very easy for Sallie to get kind of snobby, I guess, a little mean girlish when it came to her opinions on Jenny Wade. So even though Sallie herself struggled with Victorian standards and this idea that she had to be this perfect Christian, pure girl growing up, I think it was very easy for her to look down her nose at someone who probably bucked that a little bit, kind of threw some of those standards off her shoulders and said, no, I'm going to live my life the way I want to. It also doesn't help that the Wade family was very poor. Mary Wade worked as a seamstress. Jenny's mom and Jenny's dad was in and out of jail for all kinds of things, whereas Sallie came from a very stable family. Her mom and her dad had good long lives. Her dad actually joined the Union at 45 years old. that really kind of ate Sallie up because she was so worried about her elderly father, which now looking back, I think is kind of funny. But she wrote of her concern. Her brother Jefferson joined the Union as well. So I think Sallie just came from a more stable, definitely financially stable environment. So I think it was easy for her to be pretty judgy.
A couple questions. How close in age were Sallie and Jenny, I guess?
Sallie was 21 during the Battle of Gettysburg, and Jenny was 20.
So just a year.
Yeah, very close.
Sarah wants to know, if Sallie moved away, why did she choose to be buried in Gettysburg?
She moved away to be with her husband when she got married. She moved up to, I believe, Allegheny County, where he was from. But after he passed away, it was just her and her infant son. She stayed up there in Allegheny County for a couple years, I think 2 or 3, and then eventually moved back to be closer with her family.
So she moved back here before
She moved
she
back
passed.
here, yeah.
Okay.
She ended up living the rest of her life pretty much in Gettysburg.
Someone wants to know, who was Tilly Pierce?
Tilly Pierce was another civilian on Baltimore Street who experienced the battle. Tilly was I believe she was 15 when the battle happened, but she wrote a book called What a Girl Saw. So she became kind of famous for writing after the battle about her experience as a young girl at Gettysburg. And this cemetery is a gorgeous walk.
It is. It's huge, too. What was the name of the book again?
What a Girl Saw.
What a Girl Saw.
We are pretty fortunate that we have so many first-hand accounts of the Battle of Gettysburg. And from a variety of points of view, not just the soldiers and civilians, but younger women, older women. We kind of get a really nice, broad spectrum view of the battle, what led up to it and the aftermath. Oh, and here's another fun fact. So, Sallie Myers' mom was Hannah Margaret Sheeds, who was a member of the Sheeds family. So, any of the Sheeds relatives in town, they're all like my 5th, 6th, 7th cousins, which is cool because there's a whole bunch of them. So this is Sallie Myers' grave. It says, Salome Myers, widow of Reverend Henry F. Stewart, Delta Company 149th Pennsylvania Volunteers. Interred at Jamestown, PA. She was born June 24th, 1842, married October 17th, 1867, parted September 20th, 1868. So yeah, he died less than a year after their marriage. Reunited January 17th, 1922.
Married on October 17th, just one day after we got married.
Yeah, our anniversary is October 16th. Fun fact about us. A volunteer nurse at the Civil War, daughter of a soldier, wife of a soldier. And then her son, Henry, is buried right next to her. She and her husband Henry only had one child. Henry was an incredibly brilliant doctor. He was known to be a little bit of he was like one of those really brilliant minded physicians who also was probably just a little this side of crazy. He actually built an automobile from scratch. He built it by himself, but it only drove backwards. So he was known to be the doctor that drove around town making house calls in a car that only drove backwards. Supposed to be a brilliant man though. And it's actually thanks to him that we have a lot of her early diary transcripts. Sallie left really incredible diaries, but unfortunately she had a tendency to conserve paper in her writing. So she would write on a piece of paper in her diary. She'd write the normal way, and then to conserve paper, she would turn it and continue writing down the paper like this. And then sometimes if she still wanted to conserve paper, she would turn it a third time and then write crosswise. So her diaries at times are incredibly hard to read. Henry Stewart, her son, took a lot of time over the years to transcribe her diaries, which is also how we know what her diary said during 1863, because unfortunately there was I believe it was a theft. I'd have to go back and ask my mom though. I believe it was a theft of her 1863 diary some decades ago, and it simply disappeared and nobody knows where it went. It was at the Historical Society here in Adams County, and then one day it suddenly wasn't. So unfortunately, we don't actually have her physical 1863 diary. We just have Henry's transcripts, but thankfully we at least have those, because if it weren't for that and his dedication to his mom's writing, we wouldn't have her words like we do today.
Do we know who Jenny Stewart was, or they're related?
I believe that was his wife.
Henry's wife.
Henry's wife.
Okay.
And it's through them that my grandma, my mom's mom, was Henry Stewart's granddaughter.
Someone asked where Jenny Wade is buried, and it's actually just right across the cemetery here.
You want to walk over? Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can walk over there.
And also talking about Sallie Myers and her experience, she was still very much a stereotypical girl growing up, especially a young adult woman. She had at least a crush, although potentially a relationship with Thomas Snyder here in town. And her mom found out about it because her mom had been snooping in her diaries, and that caused quite a thing between her and her mom, because her mom was incredibly controlling, and Sallie just wanted to kind of have some of her life be her life, but her mom was incredibly controlling. And so she wrote in her diaries about leaving Mr. Snyder alone and meeting only now as strangers, and leaving him be so that her mom would kind of get off her back. And unfortunately, within 2 years, she met Henry Stewart and ended up falling in love with him. So Thomas Snyder was no longer even a thing. But it's really incredible to read her earlier diaries. It really was just a very stereotypical young woman, no different than any other 18, 19, 20-year-old. But unfortunately, she was thrown into the mix of an incredibly terrible battle and had to put herself to the test. Do you know how to get there from here?
Yeah, it's right over there,
Yes.
where that flagpole is.
They have some of these prettiest trees. Look at that one.
Mhm.
Look at the tree.
Color's really starting to change on the leaves. It's going to be so pretty here in a couple weeks. I mean, prettier than it is now.
It's gonna be so nice. I love fall. I mean, I'm very much a summer person, but fall is so pretty.
So this here is the grave site of Jenny Wade.
Jenny Wade is only the second woman in U.S. history to have a perpetual flag flown at her gravesite. I believe the other is Betsy Ross. Jenny was originally buried in her family's garden on July 4th after the fighting had ended. But then in time, when Evergreen Cemetery was built, money was raised to provide her with a proper burial site over here. So she was disinterred and brought here to her final resting place.
So to this day, there's still only 2 women that have a flag flying by their grave.
As far as I know, yeah. And it's pretty incredible because, again, kind of similar to Sallie Myers, Jenny was just a young girl. She had no military training. She had no nursing skills. She was being trained to be a seamstress like her mom. She really had no skill set that would have made her valuable to the battlefield, except that she had phenomenal courage. She ran outside of her house, ducking bullet fire, ducking active bullets, to run back behind her sister's house to provide bread and water to the soldiers, and then came running despite the active bullets flying at that house to come back inside and continue baking to ensure that the soldiers were fed and had water. I just think it's pretty incredible how much courage you have to have and how much love you have to have for the cause and for what you believe in to continue to run out despite your windows being blown out by bullets flying past your head to provide food and water to fellow soldiers. So that's pretty phenomenal. And despite the fact that her family had the reputation they had, they were still known to generally be some incredibly kind and generous people. And I think that's pretty evident in her actions. The fact that she was more than willing to risk her own life for the sake of others says a lot about her character and the character of her mom and her raising. We also have a local legend that if a young unmarried woman puts her ring finger through the bullet hole in the door to the Jenny Wade house, that she will receive a marriage proposal within the year. So if you're looking for yet another reason to come to Gettysburg, that's a good one. I personally have not tried it, but I have heard so many people over the years who swear by it. So much so that the curators of the Jenny Wade Museum will actually get emails, they'll get Facebook comments, they will get letters talking about how they came for a tour and the young woman put her ring finger in, and next thing she knows, her boyfriend's proposing and they're getting married. So it's definitely a thing. And we believe it's because Jenny died so young that perhaps she's blessing those unions and helping another young woman get the happy ever after that she did not get.
Someone said that they tried it and it didn't happen for them.
Oh, no, such luck.
Someone said, what if you're already married? And Big Papi said you become a Mormon.
Okay, we listen, we don't judge. We're just, you do you, boo. But, yeah, no, I think your story's pretty incredible.
Anybody have any questions before we wrap up? There is a book about Sallie Myers.
Yes.
If anyone is interested in reading it or getting a copy.
So, yes, I'm going to plug my mom's book because she is the only author to ever formally write about Sallie Myers. So, yes, this is my mom's book. Sarah Sites Thomas, or Sallie. She actually goes by Sallie as well, named after her great-great-grandmother. This is The Ties of the Past, the Gettysburg Diaries of Salome Myers Stewart. This has information on Sallie Myers, including family history, and it has detailed information about her poetry. It has actual transcripts of her diaries, so you can read her diary entries yourself. It talks about her early years, her later life. It's a pretty phenomenal book, and I know this is my mom's book. My mom did a ton of research for this. She heard family stories over the years, and then, like I said, in her junior year of college, she ended up writing about Sallie Myers, which is how this book came to be. But I am incredibly proud of this. It's the only known, as far as I know, the only book out there about Sallie Myers. It's the one and only, the OG, but it's incredible. It's one of my all-time favorites. And sometimes I go back and just reread it because I love hearing about my family's history. Gettysburg is literally in my blood. I'm descended from soldiers and civilians who fought and some who died here. And I think this place is pretty incredible. If you're interested, you can always reach out to us. My mom does not have a website. She's mostly retired at this point, but let us know if you're interested. I think it's like $19.95, but we can always get in touch. So.
Yeah, you can always send us a private message, and if you're interested in a book, we'll figure out how to get a copy to you.
So yeah.
Anybody else have any questions before we sign off? After today, you won't see or hear from us for a while. We did just get married, and we're heading on our honeymoon, so we're going to be out for over a week. And so if you get worried, don't worry. We're fine.
We're just enjoying the honeymoon.
We're just in the middle of the ocean.
Thank you guys for being here today. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. I love talking about Gettysburg's history. I do living history on the side just for fun. I've done reenacting since I was 16. I've been studying Gettysburg history for a long time, but this was fun. Thank you for allowing us the time and the opportunity and hanging out with us today.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed it, well, let us know. We'll try to plan something else later on. And someone asked if her books are available in Gettysburg. I don't believe they are anymore. So if you're interested,
yeah,
just contact us and we'll figure out how to get a book to you. We'll figure out how to send it to you and everything. So I am, just so you all know, I am also in garb. I'm not cheating or anything. I'm out here in my Union outfit, uniform, all wool. So.
But you don't have on the kepi.
I don't. Yeah, because it was just a little too hot and a little uncomfortable.
For being October, it is quite warm.
It's very warm today.
But yes, he is reenacting as part of the 149th Pennsylvania Bucktails as well. So awesome. So somebody asked, how do we contact you? They can send us a message through here, yes?
Yeah, you can visit our main TikTok page, and you can send us a message that way. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. You can send us messages that way. I don't think I have any contact information set up yet on the website. So
we should add that before we leave.
Yeah.
And show off their wedding band. Yay. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
It's flopping over. This is why I don't do the videoing. I don't do the recording. You're so much better at it.
See you, everybody.